Hello, I'm Oliver Colling, and this is the My 70s TV Childhood Quiz. Hello, and welcome back to Podcastland's favourite 1970s UK TV trivia-related fortnightly quiz. And I say that in the knowledge that we are probably Podcastland's only 1970s UK TV trivia-related fortnightly quiz. And if, by any chance, there is another one, I can always say that that is a qualitative judgment rather than a quantitative analysis. Anyway, welcome back to our quiz. It's great to have you listening. As always, we're going to ask you 20 questions over 4 rounds, designed to test your memories of memorable and also some obscure 1970s TV shows. Remember, it's just for fun, but I do know that some of you are fiercely competitive about the quiz, and I kind of like that as it plays to my own competitive nature. If there's anything you'd like to tell us about the quiz, then you can get in touch by emailing quiz@my70stvchildhood.com or by leaving a comment on our blog at www.my70stvchildhood.com, or you can track us down on your favourite social media. Oh, except Instagram, which I haven't dared to go on yet because I can't do that sucked-in cheeks pout that everyone seems to do on the photographs. I am working on it, so perhaps that's our next social media adventure. I digress, and not for the first time, as regular listeners to our podcast will say. Let's get on to this week's quiz. And round 1 this time is a round called Question of Sport, which isn't about the TV show, but is about sport on television in the 1970s in general. And before my non-sporting listeners groan and move on to the next podcast in the queue, the questions will be ones most of you can at least have a go at. Question 1. Who was the rugby league coach and commentator who also had a role presenting the marathon or fil rouge in It's a Knockout? Question 2. Which of these sports featured on ITV's Saturday afternoon show World of Sport? Ice speedway, barrel jumping, or ten-pin bowling? Question 3. In the 1979 series of A Question of Sport, who were the team captains? Here's a clue. One was a footballer and one was a rugby union player. Question 4. Who won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award in 1976? And question 5. The 1970 FA Cup final was the first since 1912 to end in a draw, and so went to a replay. Where was that replay played? How was that? Well, on a related subject, we're going to move on to round 2, which is our own version of the marathon or fil rouge from It's a Knockout. And this round is all about previous episodes of our podcast and things that we've discussed. So if you've listened to the podcast, you may have a slight advantage. Question 1. In what month of which year was the first episode of the My 70s TV Childhood podcast released to a waiting world? So when was our first episode? Question 2. We remember the wonderful Brian Cant in October 2023. Brian had hopes of becoming a professional footballer before becoming the voice of Trumpton et al. But which team did he play for? Question 3. Just before Christmas 2024, we look back at 1970s Christmas adverts. Which company produced and advertised the ingenious record vacuum device, amongst other remarkable products? Question 4. The Tomorrow People featured in April 2024, and I remembered what might have been my first TV crush, Carol from the Tomorrow People. Who played Carol in the show? And question 5. In January 2024, we featured the Goodies. Which one of the trio often had Land of Hope and Glory playing in the background as he spoke? And so we're halfway through already. All going well? Great. Well, let's move on to round 3. And this is our ever-popular Spin the Wheel, Name That Tune combo mashup round. where I will spin our specially constructed Wheel of Fate. Choose a year from the 1970s, which I'll then input into our state-of-the-art AI-powered theme tune generator, which will randomly select 5 theme tunes from shows first shown on British TV that year. Sounds complicated? I assure you it isn't. So let's spin the wheel. And it's landed on 1975. Was that right? We had that last time, so I better put the no repeat control override into the state-of-the-art AI-powered theme tune generator. And here we are, all ready to play. Let's begin with theme tune 1. Now, we've cut that one a bit short to avoid the bit where they actually say what the show is, but hopefully you know that already. On to theme tune 2. And theme tune 3. Loved that show. And now let's go to tune 4. Cheery show, that one. And finally, and this one's a bit tricky, I think, theme tune 5. Okay, so on to the last round already. And this is our TV Times round, which is our general 70s TV trivia round. Question 1. Staying with 1975, what was the name of the comedy show starring Spike Milligan and John Bird as illegal immigrants, wearing blackface, that proved so controversial that only the first episode was ever broadcast? Question 2. Roger Varley was a character who featured in Camberwick Green and also made guest appearances in Trumpton and Chigley. What was his profession? So what was Roger Varley's profession? Question 3. What part did Reginald Marsh play in the BBC show The Good Life? Question 4. Which show featured Fenella, a witch who lived in a giant kettle? And I'll repeat that one, I think. Which show featured Fenella, a witch who lived in a giant kettle? And finally, question 5. In the Blue Peter appeal of 1973, what were we asked to send into the show to help tackle drought and famine in Ethiopia? And that's it, another 20 questions in the bag. How did you do? Well, while you're finalising your answers, here's the answer to last time's bonus question. I asked, in 1979, ITV was off the air for 11 weeks due to a strike. What was the first programme shown when it came back on air? And the answer was the ITN News at 5:45 with Leonard Parkin. Well done if you got that right. Okay, on to this time's bonus. On the 19th of August 1970, ITV celebrated the 1000th episode of Coronation Street and broadcast a tribute and published a special souvenir issue of TV Times. But what was strange about the celebration? If you know the answer, then let me know by sending a mail to quiz@my70stvchildhood.com. Okay, so on to this time's answers. Round 1, a question of sport. Who's the rugby league coach and commentator who also had a role presenting the marathon with Phil Rouge and It's a Knockout? That was the incomparable Eddie Waring. Which of these sports featured on ITV's Saturday afternoon show, World of Sport? Ice speedway, barrel jumping, 10-pin bowling. Well, slight bit of a trick question here. All of them rather bizarrely. Question 3. Who were the 1979 team captains in A Question of Sport? They were Gareth Edwards and Emlyn Hughes. Question 4. Who won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award in 1976? And that was the Olympic gold-winning figure skater John Curry. And question 5. The 1970 FA Cup final was the first since 1912 to end in a draw and went to a replay. Where was the replay played? That was at Old Trafford, Manchester. Round 2, our Marathon of Phil Rouge round. In what month of which year was the first episode of our podcast released? September 2020. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Question 2. Brian Cant had hopes to become a professional footballer before he became the voice of Trumpton et al. Which team did he play for? Well, he was on the books at Ipswich Town. Question 3. In Christmas adverts of the 1970s, which company produced and advertised the ingenious record vacuum device? Well, it could be anybody other than Ronco. Question 4. My first TV crush in the Tomorrow People? Carol? Who played Carol? That was Sammy Windmill. And question 5. Which of the goodies often had Land of Hope and Glory playing in the background as he spoke? That was Tim Brooke Taylor. Okay, on to our Name That Tune round. The first tune, which I cut short because it would give away the title of the programme, that was the completely mad Animal Quackers. Question 2. That was the theme tune to Runaround, hosted by Mike Reed, who was actually quite scary when he was shouting at all these small children all the time. Theme tune 3. That was the theme tune to Space 1999. Theme tune 4 was another science fiction programme, and that was the cheeriest programme of the 1970s, Survivors. And theme tune 5. This was the theme tune to a serial called Sky, which is an HTV-produced show, which I remember being quite scary. It was about a boy who mysteriously appeared. It was quite another one of these quite scary shows. So Sky was the theme tune. And well done if you got that one, because I think that was a bit tricky. And our final round, the TV Times round. What was the name of the 1975 comedy show starring Spike Milligan and John Bird as illegal immigrants, whilst wearing blackface, that proved so controversial that only the first episode was ever broadcast? That was the show The Melting Pot, which even in 1975 was probably just going a little bit too far. Question 2. What was Roger Varley's profession? Roger Varley was the chimney sweep in Camberwick Green and Trumpton and Chigley. Question 3. What part did Reginald Marsh play in The Good Life? Well, he was Jerry and Tom's boss. He was often referred to as Sir, but his name was Andrew. I'm not sure if he ever had a surname. Question 4. Which show featured Fenella, a witch who lived in a giant kettle? And that was, again, another rather bonkers programme, Chorlton and the Wheelies. And question 5. In the Blue Peace repeal of 1973, what were we asked to send to the show to help tackle drought and famine in Ethiopia? Well, obviously it was used postage stamps. And if anyone can tell me how the used postage stamps were translated into aid to help famine in Ethiopia, please email the show. I'd love to know. So how did you get on? Are you going home with a carriage clock and £10 from Derek Beatty? Or are you leaving empty-handed? Whichever, I hope you have enjoyed our quiz. We will be back in a week's time with the next regular episode of the podcast, and then again in a fortnight with our next quiz. In the meantime, have a great week, be nice to each other, and don't forget to join us again soon for more from My 70s TV Childhood and the My 70s TV Childhood quiz.